Hey everyone, welcome to the Underswell. I'm Derek Sabori. Thanks for being here. All right, countdown is complete. Tiffany, we're live.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I usually ask where you're dialing in from, because I was going to say thank you for being here from Isla Mirada, from the Keys. So spoiler alert, that's where you're dialing in from. How are things out in the Florida Keys today?
They're pretty perfect. It's sunny. There's a slight breeze through the palm trees that I'm looking at. I'm looking right at the ocean, so it's not bad at all.
Tiffany Duong, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome to the Underswell. We've got a lot to talk about because I know you've been really busy. But first, you and I met on a University of California alumni webinar. We were both panelists on charting a green career, insights from environmental leaders. So my first question is, as a UCLA alum, are you still engaged with the school? Do you do a lot of activity with the University of California?
I am on a bunch of cool alumni things like the panel we met on, which I feel so fortunate to be on because as a student, I went to those and it feels very full circle and cool to get to give back. Aside from that, though, being in Florida makes it a little hard to be, back on campus, which would always be the goal. It's a lovely campus.
It is, and it's so great to be giving back. And I love that connection, just back to being a student, knowing that there were mentors and guides that helped you and that giving back. That's why I love staying connected as well. I also love that your email signature says, please note that I change time zones frequently. I know that you really do. You have been traveling quite a bit. We're going to get into that. But kind of besides work, before we dive into that, what else is keeping you busy sort of personally these days?
Well, my life is never the same on purpose, which is what I want and like. And it took me a while to figure that out. But I'm usually traveling on a assignment as a ocean journalist. Like next week, I'll be in the Bahamas on a liveaboard writing about the diving there. I just came back from a scientific expedition in Tela, Honduras, which was also filming a movie. And so it's always changing, it's always new, which makes it challenging and fun. So my work is mixed in with a lot of my fun. And then all the moments that are not somehow tied to work, they tend to be very grounding. So I love aerial yoga. I have this, my teacher lets us practice in her house on the beach in Isla Mirada. And you're looking out over the ocean as you're hanging upside down in this parachute swing thing. And it's literally bliss. And then, of course, I dive here and I just find other ways to enjoy the people I love and the places that bring me joy.
And that, I think, is a good sort of summary and, sort of a visual for us talking today about your bold career pivot, sort of choosing your own life by creating your own career. Well, my last episode was sort of about building a meaningful, career while building building a meaningful life while building your career. Sounds like that's sort of what you've done, where you've sort of mashed it all together. And like you said, your work is your life is your work, and it's all pretty good right now.
Yeah, I have a life gumbo, right? There's not a main course and an appetizer and a dessert. It's kind of just all there, and I can feast on it whenever I want. But that also makes it hard to extract things. If I just wanted to relax, my brain can't, because if I'm diving, I'm this would make a great dive story. And then because it's all connected, right? My identity has become what I do because I'm so driven by my purpose. And that wasn't always the case. So to have that now feels extra special.
Does it ever mean, though, that you're never able to turn off? Is there a downside to that, or do you always just find the upside in it?
I mean, for me, it's an upside, but I know that teams I'm with and even people in my family, they're just you're always working. I'm it's not that I have to, I want to. I can't help it. I love it so much. But it is a hard pace to keep up with. My mom always says no one can keep up with me just because I'm always bopping around doing all these different things. But that's how I want my life to feel, right? It's not for everyone.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try to keep up with you today. We're going to get through a whole bunch of things. I also want to talk about, building a career on your terms, your love of the ocean, finding purpose and passion, knowing when it's time to pivot. You made a big pivot in your career. We'll talk about that. The benefits of exploration, which you've just noted, you're always traveling and exploring. the power of storytelling, being an entrepreneur, and what it's like, working in the nonprofit sector, which is, I know is your area as well. So you're the co-founder, though, of multiple nonprofit organizations. So we'll start there, as well as a writer, storyteller, and public speaker. Tell us a little bit, we alluded to this, traveling that you've been doing. You just got back from a 2-week filming and scientific expedition in Tela, Honduras. Tell us about what you've been up to the last few months.
Absolutely. So I have a nonprofit called Tela, and we established about 3 years ago to support this incredible community in Tela, Honduras, which is a tiny beach town off the mainland. And Hondurans know about it. It's kind of like their Vegas. They go there to like day drink and go on the beach and enjoy, but they don't necessarily connect to what's beneath the waves. And what's there is, well, because a lot of them don't even swim, right? There's a huge access problem here. And so if they don't swim, they certainly don't dive. Right. So how could they realize that there's this reef that is defying all the odds? No one understands why the reef in Tela is doing well, why these corals seem to be resisting things that are killing coral everywhere else in the world, like sewage in the water, hot temperatures, like massive flows of nutrients. It's all there, and it's still the most beautiful reef I've ever seen with my eyes. And no one knows about it because this reef was just discovered like 13 years ago.
Wow, but so it's alive and thriving in an environment where it shouldn't be? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it seems to thrive, right? There's not enough science to even say it's thriving. No one is really studying yet, and that's why we established our nonprofit, was to bring science and to bring storytelling here and to really support the local community, which has dedicated their lives to protecting the rebel reef, is what we call it, very, very lovingly.
So you're down there doing some filming and focusing on the science part of it. What will you do with what's the film project about?
We won a film grant late last year, which helped fund part of the filming, which we just completed. We will be creating a short documentary that focuses on Christian Carillas. He's the only professional dive master in Tela. There's literally one guy who's Honduran who can take people out on the reef in the whole town, which is crazy. And he's 30, he's charismatic, he's young, and he has this killer story about how the reef also saved him. And so we parlay his healing and his resilience with that of the reef, and we leave it up to the audience to understand questions of pride in this resource and identity and hope.
Yeah, well, congratulations on getting the grant or the funding for that project. When can we expect to see that in the marketplace? When do we get to watch it?
We're in editing right now. We just started post-production. We actually had the meeting this morning with the editors. That's exciting. You could look for word about it towards the end of this year.
Okay, great. Well, that'll be great. You've got a couple different links. We'll put all the links in the show notes so people can keep up with you and all the work that you're doing. I want to take it all the way back, though. As I mentioned, you're a fellow UC alum, and you were an international development major. Like my previous guest, actually, who also was in that space. He's at Carbon Collective now, but I think you might maybe even have a minor in Italian and a law degree. So tell me a little bit about your studies and the pivots you made.
Absolutely. So I think if you look at my degrees and that record that you just spouted, it basically shows you that I had no idea what I was doing. I went into UCLA undecided. I switched my major 5 times. At some point in basically all humanities. And at some point in my senior year, I was like, oh crap, it's my senior year. I need to graduate. And international development was the one major where all the classes that I had sort of surveyed and taken became a major. It was like a new major that year. And so I was like, great, that's my major. So, and it did dovetail with a lot of my interests. Like my work in Tela is a lot like international development. I did law work in like project finance of renewable energy before. So it's not completely unaligned, but I definitely didn't go in saying like, I'm going to be an IDS major because I didn't know that existed.
And so you had 5 major switches. That's what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it almost sounds like your major, you didn't even necessarily know that's where you were headed until you realized like, that's where I'm at.
It's
That's
senior
gonna be my
year.
major.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing. But it seems like it has worked out just fine for you.
I mean, this conversation is actually helping me realize that has also been my approach to my career. It's like, take a little bit from here, take a little bit from there, make up something new. So I guess I've always been this kind of a person without realizing it, which is kind of neat to realize in this moment. The minor in Italian is just because I love the language. I'm obsessed with it. And so I did everything I could to study abroad, and I did in college and in law school in Italy. I worked for the Department of State for the Olympics, actually, which was very fun. And then the law degree was because continuing off of not really having a major on purpose, I was like, I know I want to do something eco, but I don't know what that is, and I don't know how to give myself a little more cachet. And so I thought a law degree would be such a great way to do that. It'll give me some legs under my passion. And I did that, and it did, but what I didn't realize was it's very foolish to go to law school to not become a lawyer. Like, I went to law school never with the intention of becoming a lawyer. I just wanted like knowledge and experience and tools in my toolkit to be an effective advocate. And yeah, you know, and in retrospect, I'm like, why did I think that was a great idea?
Was it though? I want to jump on that real quick, because I think it almost is a great idea as an advocate, right? But at the same time, is it not a good idea just because so much work, so much effort, the cost that comes along with it, the money? Yeah, exactly. So are you saying there are other ways to be an effective advocate? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. I mean, so I've gotten some incredible skill sets from law. It has sharpened my brain in a way that I don't think anything else could have. I can argue the pants off of anyone if I want to lock in. But I think I could have gained those tools in a different way. And I think what happened to me in law school is I went there being like, oh, look, it's a buffet of different learning and tools, but really it was one set. You know, you go there to become, at least the law school I went to, like, you go there to go into corporate law. And that was never my intention. And I found myself even getting pushed into corporate law. And I worked for a law firm for 6 years. Never my intention. Day one, I was like, I'm going to last a year. This is so not for me. And it took 6 years to extract myself because that was the path. And it was so much harder to get off of a path that someone else had set, and that they had said, this is the only path, this is cement, you know, everyone walks this path. It was so hard to get off that. And I think that was the opportunity cost of law school for me. Had I done all my exploring at 22 instead of at 32 when I quit, I have no idea where I'd be. But, you know, flip side, I also wouldn't have all the lessons that I took from leaving law, like trusting in myself and really prioritizing what lights me up. So who knows?
That's really interesting to think back to that you were sort of had become so embedded. They had kind of dragged you into it. I can almost think like The Godfather. You're like, every time I want to get out, they just keep pulling me back in. 6 years, right? I mean, that's, like you said, to extract yourself out of it. That's interesting. Well, let's talk about then how that has parlayed into your professional pathway, because you know, after your degree, then you were doing renewable energy and global energy transactions and then into ocean health. I call these flashpoint moments, that when you have that moment where you're like, I have to go do this. Now I know this is what I'm doing. Big decisions in your life where you make a pivot. Did you have one of those specifically? Was there a specific moment that led to a transition into ocean focused work? Or did that also just sort of, hey, I found myself here and here's what I'm doing?
Oh, no, there was definitely a single dive. So when I was a lawyer, I felt pretty dead inside. I used to think that I separated my work self from my real self completely. And I'd be like, okay, I'm real Tiff, you know, for 2 hours after work, the 2 days of the weekend, if I got a weekend, and maybe the 2 weeks of vacation, if I could, you know, be allowed that. And I was like, the rest of me is just working to make the money to live in those little pockets of life. And so I went really hard on all these adrenaline sports just to feel more alive. So scuba diving was one of the things I picked up just casually, just to be like, this sounds fun, let's do it. And then I signed up for a dive trip kind of with that same sure, why not apathy almost of like, yeah, you know, give me some adrenaline. And I went to the Galápagos, and it was my first live aboard trip, first international diving. I was 18 dives in, which was far too little at that point to be doing the things that we were doing. So I was over my head, like dive challenge wise. And then we went on this one dive, and it's a drift dive. And for anyone who doesn't know, you basically you drop in and you let the ocean current take you. And then the boat from the top watches your bubbles, but you just like, you can't fight it. If you try to fight it, like, depending how hard it is, it can rip your mask off and all these things. So you have to trust the ocean to just take you somewhere. And as a type A unhappy lawyer at that moment, telling me to just go with the flow and trust, I was like, heck no, like, what are you talking about? So I literally held onto a rock at the bottom of the ocean while everyone else was drifting away. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to hold on to this rock until I die. And at some point my brain was like, you're literally going to die alone if you can't just let go.
The boat is leaving. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everyone's leaving. And so I like screamed in my regulator. I like opened my little fingers, and I just like the water whooshed me away. And that moment broke something inside of me. Like every fear that I had about letting go of control and trusting something bigger than me turned into this like emotion of like floating and flying in the water. And I was like on every level of stoke you can imagine. And I was just like, wow, holy cow, this is so fun. There's like sea turtles. We're looking for whale sharks. Like, and I forgot that I was even scared, 10 seconds ago. And I was just on this ride. And I got up from that dive. I knew something had changed. And I just kind of like let it percolate for the rest of that week. And I like cried a bunch. I journaled a bunch. I stayed up till 3 a.m. on the boat just being like, what's happening? I have feelings I can't process. And I almost didn't go back to LA. I was like, do I just sign up for another trip? Do I become a dive master? What do I do with my life?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, no, you have a house in LA. You have to go back. You have this job that you just went to all this school for. So I like got on the plane, and when the plane touched down at LAX, I like sat in the seat, and I remember I was like, Tiff, like you cannot get off this plane unless you promise that nothing will be the same. Like I couldn't go back to feeling so unalive, right? I had felt what my life could taste like next to the ocean, in the ocean, for myself, right? And I was just like, I can't lose that again. And so I went back. A month later, I quit my job. I sold my house, and then I went without a plan, and I was just like, okay, let's figure out how to find that amount of aliveness again in a job.
Wow. That is definitely one specific flashpoint moment.
Yeah.
And what a great one. Just that visual of you letting go, the symbolism behind that as well, right? Of like having to physically let go, but at the same time emotionally giving yourself that deadline. What an experience. I guess from that moment then, how long did it take before you were able to do this transition and move into this newfound life?
I mean, I'm still transitioning. I'm still figuring out. It's been 10 years, but I think when I quit, I told myself, okay, I'm going to take a year off because that's a neat and tidy amount, and that feels palatable to everyone. People take a year sabbatical.
Yeah.
And so I told everyone, oh, it's going to be a year. And then it turned into 2 years and 3 years where I was like still very much in search. I was just like, this is not quite it, and I will not commit to something else until I know it feels like the bow of that boat felt. And like my mom hated that. She was just like, I gave you a year. What is going on? And I was like, I don't know how to explain to you that this is the right path. She's like, there is no path. You are, you're haphazardly like diving around the world and like taking these random internships. And she just couldn't see it. She's the most supportive mom I could imagine. And she was just like, my child is lost forever. And that was really hard for me. But it forced me to grow a muscle inside me that I hadn't had before of like listening to myself and realizing what was my authentic truth without any external factors.
And doing it on your terms. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about right now. You're doing it on your terms. Has your mom come to terms with it now? How's she doing now with it all?
Yes. She's like, I don't get it, but you look happy. You seem very happy. And when I have things that are traditionally successful, like if I like do a talk at the, like in front of the UN, or if I win an award, I always like to joke with her. I'm like, oh yeah, it's not because of like lawyering or all the school that you helped me get through. It's because of diving. And she's like, oh, I know, I'm aware. And so we get to have a nice little moment about it.
Oh, how cool. And once your film comes out and you're a documentarian and all of that, you also mentioned, living abroad and, doing some international studies. How important was that? I'm always a big fan of telling people like go travel heavily when you're young, go do something to immediately immerse yourself in living abroad and knowing that, whoa, there is something else out here.
Oh my God, it was the best. I didn't make it to study abroad in UCLA, so I stacked my classes and I took the fall of my senior year off to go intern for the State Department supporting the Olympics in Torino. And that was my first time really living abroad. And it was just like, it was everything I had hoped for when I studied Italian and, so much more. And it helped me just understand that the world operates so differently. Like Italians, at least back then, they were like, we don't eat at our computers. That's blasphemy. It's a meal. Right. You share it with people. And I was like, oh, and they're like, there's no option. And it was, and they like played soccer together on the weekends, like whole family, like moms too, right? Like in America, a lot of moms like don't get to partake in that kind of family stuff. And they're like, no, as a family, we go on hikes. As a family, we play soccer. And it was just very cool for me to see that. And then I studied abroad again in law school, especially when I was not liking law school. I was like, I need to escape. And so I studied abroad in Rome, and I got to go to a Roman law school and experience law through different lens, a European lens, which was very cool. Yeah. And very different. And like to ride the bus and pass by the place where Julius Caesar got killed and pass by the Colosseum on my way to school is also like, it makes you feel very small. Yeah. In an awesome way, right? Like you're a tiny speck of history in the same way that the ocean makes me feel like a tiny speck of this planet. It's very reassuring to be so small. And then when I quit law, I moved to Rio for 6 months, which is Rio in South America and the Amazon rainforest, which also like highly recommend adult study abroads. It is so fun and it can help you shift your life in new directions.
Could you imagine a world where you sort of had to, like if everybody had to, like every certain amount of time, you're like, nope, you got to pack it up and, go live six months somewhere else. What an opportunity that is.
I mean, I think we'd all be so much more connected and more open-minded and more resilient, right? Like when it's hard and you're like, I don't speak this language and I'm hungry and I don't know how to get food, like you figure it out.
You figure it out. Yeah. And I love even when you said you weren't able to get the internship or the abroad program at UCLA, but it sounds like you did that on your own then. Did you just sort of make that initiative of like, well, then I'm going to get this internship and I'm going to go put something together on my own?
Yeah, I'm pretty stubborn, if you haven't noticed. Like, it's like once I'm like, that's the thing I'm going to do, I will find a way. And that willingness to redirect has really helped me in my life.
Yes, it sounds like it. I want to touch on, you feeling so small in the ocean. You're doing so much work and storytelling and focusing on sort of planetary protection, making the world a better place. You've said, you've got this quote on your website that says, my mission is to involve and inspire others to see our world in an entirely different way. Kind of going back to traveling and earning a new perspective with that. I want to save it. How are you feeling about the progress that we've made so far in sort of saving our world, making it better, making it more livable, protecting it for future generations? How should we all feel at this point, would you say?
I mean, I think it's not all positive and not all negative, right? It's life that we're living, and we have to embrace those nuances. We can't say we only report and we only share positive stories where we've had 100% success, because there's a lot of inspiration also in the try and in the failure and the try again. And so like I personally feel very fulfilled in my own life's work and my own missions to connect other people, because I have found ways to do that resonate with me. And I think that if we can all if we all have, and I know it's a privilege too, to be able to do that and say that, right? But if we all could do that a little bit more in our own spheres, I think we can make a collective that's a little bit more whole and that can hold space for, climate joy and grief, or, environmental harm, but repair, right? Like there's no way to have environmental work that is completely impact free, right? Like I travel for my work and I am aware that causes a lot of harm. I eat meat. I am by no means a perfect environmentalist, and I think forcing people to feel like they need to be stops them from action. And so I think if we all allow ourselves to be imperfect advocates and imperfect supporters of what we believe in, we can actually build something more authentic and realistic.
Oh, I love that perspective and that idea, it allows to invite more people in. It's like, hey, everybody can be a part of this. Like, do not feel like you have to fit right into this box.
Yeah.
Before we jumped on, you were talking about, a young person traveling with you. You were talking about empowering people, helping people on their journeys as well. But you've got this organization called the Seabirds, empowering young leaders to create a sustainable future for our oceans. Maybe tell me a little bit about the work you're doing there. It's a dynamic team of female explorers, citizen scientists. What's going on over there?
Absolutely. So the Seabirds is my second nonprofit, and we are an all-women's exploration team. We've explored the Arctic, Antarctic, everywhere in between, and our whole focus is to bring people like us, like non-scientists, non-traditional explorers, out to really touch the sand and get under the waves and connect to our planet in a visceral way, in the same ways that I got moved by that dive, right? I can pinpoint the moment that I was like, the ocean is my place. It is home. I will protect it with my life. We want to create those moments, those flashpoints for other people, especially women and girls, so that they know they can have a space in this future with connection to the ocean, especially. And we use citizen science to help them learn more about what's going on and to feel like they can have an impact, right? They might not be on a science path. A lot of our team is like, I'm just a mom, or I'm a teacher, or I'm whatever. And it's like, you're not just, right? You are affecting little people at home who could be the future. And also as a mom, just as you, not because you're a mom, as a human, you also have a huge capacity. And so we try to activate those little bits in people that they might have put away on a shelf and thought that it wasn't for them.
I love that's great. Just when you said just a mom and having somebody say that, that idea, I'm so glad that you're like, wait, hang on. Any mom that says I'm just a mom, it's like, okay, hang on. There's so much, that you're doing as a mom, and that's a big job. I know with the Seabirds, you mentioned that you're studying orca in the San Juan Islands and in Arctic Norway. You're doing other research in Greenland. Is that all things that are sort of that you've done, are doing, or are going to do in the future? Or is that just sort of part of what you're always working on over there?
So that's all upcoming expeditions. Okay. Our big push right now is we were donated a hydrophone by a wonderful member of our team as part of her doctorate at Scripps in UCSD. And so we have this hydrophone, and we're going to all these remote parts of the ocean as part of our natural Seabirds programming. But it's places
real quick,
where
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's a hydrophone?
Awesome. It's an underwater recording device. So you could drop it off a boat or a Zodiac, and it'll record what you hear, and then it blasts it to a speaker that up on the boat that you can record. But scientists have used it to record a coral reef, and then when they played healthy reef sounds on a degraded reef, it made fish come back. Or you can use it to record orca or whales or anything else that is making noise, or ship noise to see how bad the ship decibel degradation is for animals.
It's like podcasting of the sea.
Yeah, I guess so. If the whale was the host.
Yeah, exactly. So I interrupted though. So you've got this hydrophone, you've got access to it. Yeah. So you're going to be out there kind of doing it, getting samples and putting that data to work. Is that right?
So yes. So we're collecting samples in places that traditional scientists might not have funding to go, might not think to go, or might not be on the ships that can get there. But we're on regular people ships. We're on recreational dive boats. And so we're getting to go to different places that are data poor, that science has not touched. and we're taking these recordings and video, 360, you name it, narratives, and we're creating a interactive story map so that anyone who wants to learn about like any speck in the ocean we've been to can get fully immersed in it in all these different mediums, and including like physical oceanography, like temperature readings and salinity and all that too. So it could be baseline science or baseline for stories, or just a cool map of our planet to get to know it better. And then we are partnering with NOAA to donate all of our recordings to become part of their open source database so that any scientists around the world can also use it.
Have any of your contacts at NOAA are still there for now? Haven't been affected yet?
For now.
For now. I wish you good luck for that. I hope
Yes.
staying hopeful.
Yes.
Tiffany, as a co-founder then of multiple organizations, I want to talk about what it's like to build those organizations or nonprofits. I guess, what do you appreciate most about starting something? Because these are things that you've started from scratch. You're building them up. They're still growing. What's that process been like?
I mean, it's all the things, right? It's awesome and terrible and hard and amazing and fulfilling. I think when you build something of your own and you really put of yourself into it, that's when it becomes obsession in a good way, right? That's like why I say like I can't stop my brain from being like, oh, I could do this and this and this, because to me it just feels like I'm building up bits of myself too.
Yeah.
So when you build something, whether it's art or a company or whatever, you get to shape all the little bits and you remember what it took to plaster on that thing onto a frame or to build that campaign, whatever it is. And it's fun and hard, right? You get to choose the logo, you get to choose the mission statement, but then you also have to get out there and make it real, right?
Yeah. Do you ever... sometimes I'm cursed by this, and I use that word maybe heavy-handedly when it comes to you, because I don't mean to say that. But when you've got multiple organizations, multiple projects, and you're doing so many things, do you ever feel, how do you balance that idea of like, man, I really should lean in and go all in on one of these? Or do you just find that it's like love, for a child, it's like there's always room for more? How do you find that balance?
I grapple with that every second of every day, for sure. It's very real. And I always think, if I just went all in on, Tela coral at the expense of seabirds and the rest of my life, we would be so much further. But in the same way that I guess I let myself have 5 majors and I let myself piece together a career, I would not be as whole of a person if I didn't get to do all the different work I want to do, right? Like, sometimes I want to write, sometimes I want to film a movie, sometimes I want to make a giant trash turtle. And allowing all those bits to exist within me makes me happier, makes me more whole, and allows me to express myself and my creativity and my passions in so many different ways that, like, I don't know, I feel very lucky all the time. Yeah. And to get to do this work, right? It's never like, oh, I have to do this work. It's like, I get to. It's such a cool feeling. I think what I tell people, it's kind of like on social media where people like niche down, and only like people have told me, if you just posted ocean stuff, you'd have such a higher following. And I was like, but I also like aerial yoga, and if I ran a half marathon and I'm proud of it, I'm going to post about it. Or if it's like, my nephew being cute, I'm going to post about that too, because it's like, you got to like all of me. Right? If you're on my channel, I'm going to showcase all of me. I take the same approach with my jobs.
Well, it's an abundance mindset then, I guess. It's like there's room for all of that in there.
Yeah.
When you're building these organizations, what are the challenges? What are the biggest challenges you're facing?
It's definitely scaling and time, funding. Especially the people I'm building with. My co-founder for the Seabirds is a widow and a single mom of 3. And so her time, and a PhD student, so her time is, unexistent. And we still try to find times to sync up and to build things. My founders for Tela coral live in all different parts of the world. And so it's hard, but I think that's why you learn as an entrepreneur, especially if you want to get bigger. You have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to ask for help and you have to learn how to prioritize. Like you can dream everything and then be like, okay, but we're working on one thing right now until we kill it, right? Like right now, it's the movie for me, for Tela, right? We just got back, we're doing it. And after the movie, maybe we'll pivot back into all the other things that are, just still on the fire.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break. Tiffany, when I come back, I want to ask you for some advice that you have for young people who are trying to build a career like yours. So stay with me and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the episode. I'm always so inspired and motivated by these career stories, and I hope you are too. And I wonder, are you looking to be featured on the show? Each week, I chat with an invited guest who is an expert in their space or who has compiled a stellar resume. If you fit that description and are interested in being a guest, just hit me up at Derek Sabori on LinkedIn. And here's something else to consider. This show platform is for hire. I build professional and personal podcast profiles for people who are looking to stand out in a crowded marketplace. You've heard my guests say it's your personality, the way you connect with people, and your ability to relate and communicate that will help land that next job, client, or customer. So let's show off your personality, not just your resume, and let's do it on a podcast. Head over to theunderswell.com to learn more. And now back to the show. All right, we're back. Tiffany, you're juggling multiple projects. You're piecing it all together like we just said. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to put a career together like yours? Not just kind of start an organization, but they're like, I want that abundant style of career. What does it take? What should they be on the lookout for? What do you want them to know? I guess, what warnings do you have, or what advice do you have?
Well, first off, I would say don't limit yourself, right? Don't go there. Don't go out and say like, what job should I get and look for a name. I would really encourage people to think about how they want their life to feel, right? And I slowly found my way there by thinking like, oh, I want to do ocean stuff. And then when I was in the Amazon, I was really testing out field work. It's like, do I want to go back to school and be a scientist? And trying out field work without committing to a job helped me be like, yep, nope, I don't want to go back to school for science, definitely. And instead of finding that to be, a failure, I was like, thank God I know now. Thank God I didn't go back to school for something I don't like again.
Yeah.
So I'd say like, don't look for a specific job. Try to see elements of what you want your life to feel like, what you want your work to feel like, and start building just that piece without naming it, right? Like almost mold something without being like, I'm making a fish, like mold it and see what it becomes.
Interesting.
I would also say, yeah.
Can I, before you go to your next one, I'll tell you a quick little story, because my son he's always played guitar, but he's really kind of zeroing in and trying to be a little more intentional with it and wants to be in a band, start a band. I'm like, so what kind of band, what kind of music are you guys going to do? Like, what do you expect to play? He goes, I don't want to name it. He goes, as soon as you put it, the best music has always been the one that you can't define.
That crosses, yeah.
Yeah, and you sort of let it happen. You find the feeling, like you just said, to feel what you're doing, rather than trying to name it from the beginning. So I love that. Yeah. Great advice. So sorry to interrupt you, but keep going.
No, I think it's true, because when I was in college, I could not have known I want to be called an explorer and a storyteller. I didn't know those careers existed. I knew doctor, lawyer, engineer, realtor, traditional things. But I clearly like an untraditional life. And so if you forced me to name it back then, I would have pigeoned myself in way deeper, right? So like, absolutely don't limit yourself. I would also say like, don't think of failures as failures. I was alluding to that, but they're opportunities to learn what works and doesn't, right? Take it as a data point. Yeah. And don't get down on yourself for it. Like, even if you get fired from something, be like, if you are angry about the firing, but not about losing the work, maybe it wasn't for you, but maybe that's an ego thing, And so like being open to those redirections. And then something that someone just told me, which I thought was beautiful, is you are also the art. And I think especially for somebody trying to build something bigger than them, like whether it's a nonprofit or a movement or something, when you're building in something you believe so deeply, don't forget that like your human life, your human body existence also matters. Like you are also the art that you are living. And so I loved that, because I fall into that, right? And like founder burnout is real, and it's important to still take time to like see your friends and hang out with your family and just, hang upside down in yoga for a while. And
staring at the ocean.
Yeah. Remember that you and your life are also the art.
I love that. That's good. And I think, you had mentioned just not doing alone. Don't feel like you have to do everything alone on your own, right? Finding a community, a support system. How important has that been for you?
It's been critical. I would never be where I am at every step of my career if not for the people who believed in me. And that set of people has changed. At the beginning, it was like my mom and family, people who just love me because I'm theirs. As I have evolved in my career, I have found and built communities. Like in the Keys, I have an ocean community, right? Mm-hmm. And I never knew that that's something I needed. But here we literally go to like fish trivia and we nerd out for 4 hours about, what species of fish has a breeding run on the beach of California. And like, it's important to have those kinds of people to support you and your passions. And then I also can call them and be like, I'm building this biobank in Tela, Honduras. I know you're great at this, like join the cause. And they're like, I'm there tomorrow. Let's go.
Yeah, I love that. You're fish nerds, right? Is that what you're saying?
Ocean nerds. We're wide.
Tiffany, when you look back on sort of the last 5, even 10 years or so, and you look past it, through all your professional decisions, you just mentioned, not looking at failures as failures, but really looking at them as opportunities to learn. So what were some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from all of what you've been through so far?
So the first one is always like learn to go with the flow, learn to let go. That was from that dive that we were talking about. And I think what that really means is like let life move you, right? Like if like right now, if the job you had at NOAA went poof and you are young and you were like, that was my dream job, okay, life is moving you another way, right? And are you going to hold on to this rock or are you going to flow and figure it out, right? Like don't get so stuck on these ideas. Let life move you and keep going. Believe in magic, right? Like it sounds so corny, but I really, truly, like I've learned this from the ocean. Like there are just incredible things in this world, and let yourself constantly be like inspired and happy and joyful. Even if the reef is dying, I can have a spectacular dive and I can come back feeling so connected to this planet and to myself and be like, yeah, let's go. So like, don't ever lose your spark, even if you're in environmental work and it feels heavy and scary and terrible, right? Yeah. Find ways to still be ignited. And in the same token, like allow yourself to dream bigger, right? Like we're making this movie. I've never made a movie before. And now we just filmed one and we're editing it, right? And everyone's like, oh, like, do you know what you're doing? And I'm like, heck no. Absolutely. Like 0% do I know what I'm doing. But I'm willing to ask people and I am willing to never give up, right? Like failure is just not an option. So I will figure it out. And I trust in that. And so letting yourself dream bigger and don't have no limits, right? Like if you want to make a movie, make it. If you want to skydive to, I don't know, make climate art, do it.
Yeah. Don't limit yourself. I love that you said that. I think, you have probably mentioned all of these already in our conversation, but just maybe to try to pull it all together here in the last few minutes for everybody, I do want to get a sense, like, is there a common thread between all of what you've done? Like, if we think of transferable skills and you sort of had to kind of pull out to the 35,000 foot level, what's been the common thread for you that, helps get you through it all?
The first thing is that I am aggressively chasing joy with everything I do. It is like every fiber of my being is like what feels good, what makes me happy. And that includes my work as a very big part of it. And so, and then beyond it feeling joyful, then I'm like, okay, then I can define what I'm doing. Am I making a sculpture? Am I running a nonprofit? Or am I making a movie? All my work also, I guess, like my brain probably, is very interdisciplinary. Like my major was very interdisciplinary, and everything that I build touches on science and human connection and solutions and art and puts it all together into some package that, maybe doesn't have a definition, but it makes me feel connected to something bigger. And then I think the real heart is emotions and care. I'm a Pisces. I'm wishy-washy to the max. I love emotions and heart. Oh, that's lovely. I love emotions. I love heart. And so a lot of scientists are like, lead with the facts. And it's just like, science cannot just be facts. Like, you have to touch people with it. That's where storytelling comes in, right? It's, you get people to care, then they'll protect. If data was enough, we wouldn't have a climate crisis, right?
That's right.
But it's not.
That's a really powerful line. If data was enough, if it were just for data, we wouldn't have a climate crisis. I really like that. That's a great point. And I appreciate that perspective of owning that Pisces, persona.
Yes.
I'm often getting teased, especially in my family, for just always being the emotional one. Like, always like, it's a thing. Let's, Tiffany, let's wrap this up for everybody. And you're so busy, we'll let you get back to everything. But I'd love to kind of get three last things from you. I mean, you've already given us so many good things, but I don't know, for somebody who's early in their career journey, or who's sort of doing that pivot on their own, or this is inspiring them to go, man, I want to chase that feeling. What are the three things you want people to know, to keep in mind, to take away from this?
Awesome. Great question to end with. I would say money and success are not everything, especially as defined by other people. Like, define success in your life how you want. And I was at a happiness summit, and someone said this, and I thought it was brilliant. They were like, money, like, people think that money brings happiness, and it doesn't. It just lessens unhappiness. So it cannot automatically bring you happiness. It'll make you like less hungry, or you can do things, but you are the only architect of your own happiness, and you can and you must do things to build it, right? Money is not going to be enough. Success, especially if other people are calling it success instead of you, is not enough. So define success for yourself. For me, It's, I can wake up when I want, I can wear what I want, I never have to show up to a meeting I don't want to, and I live where I want. So to me, those freedoms are success.
Yes.
Define your own.
Yeah.
And then I would say embrace change, especially now when everything is weird and completely unpredictable. Like, know that it is going to change, right? Don't depend on it to stay stagnant. So build up your own skill set so that you can pivot and move with it. And then just focus on the next best step. You don't have to have a whole map, right? Like, take one step and then take a look again to see where you might go, because from where you are at the bottom, you cannot possibly map out how to get to the top. You just need to take one step and then relearn, meet new people, whatever, and make a new path. Like, be your own trailblazer in your own life.
Those are great. Tiffany, you've left so many kind of golden nuggets in here, if for lack of a better analogy for that, or words for that. But thank you so much. That's great advice. Really fun. I can't wait to put this all together and type up my show notes and kind of pull out some of your quotes here. So a lot of good advice. Is there anything that we've left out, or anything that you want to call? If I can give you the mic here for the last moment for either a shout out or a call out, anything to wrap us up with and take us out with?
I will just say, I will encourage people in their search for purpose and meaning and happiness, all that, to like take moments and like just like go outside in nature and enjoy being a human, right? Be a body, and like take in some sunshine, go to the mountains, do something that like connects you to what's bigger than us.
Great advice. Well, let's do that. Let's get out here. Let's get back out into the ocean, into the sun, into the mountains, wherever you're at. Go get some nature. Tiffany, thank you so much. Like I said, I'll share all your links so people can follow along with all the great work that you're doing. The very best place to keep up with you, though, is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? Where do you want people going to first?
You could probably find me on Instagram, most active, and LinkedIn's really good too, or email me. I'm very open and reachable.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Derek.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what you heard, be sure to check back weekly, subscribe to the show, and if you want to be featured on the show, come hit us up at theunderswell.com. We'd love to hear from you.